Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you the electric installation of this Thule Omnistar 550mm step, which is an electronic step that automatically retracts back into the van when you turn the ignition on. Let's have a look inside the case and see what we've got. So we've installed the step itself underneath the van, and we're going to need obviously the installation manual, which has a wiring diagram on top, which we'll be following. We're going to have a small rocker switch which comes as part of the pack, which will obviously allow you to switch the step to the in and the out position. And then you'll also need to purchase an additional relay, which comes with a small capacitor as well. And this little device here enables the step to retract automatically when you turn on the ignition feed. So it's a good little feature to have, so that the step isn't left in the out position and you drive off with your step out. The wires that come out the back of the step, there's 4 of them. You've got a red and a black, you've got a grey, and you've got a brown. Now these colour wires obviously correspond to the wiring diagram on the installation manual, so we'll be going through that in some more detail in a bit to learn about what these wires do. The location of the wiring is going to be primarily in the passenger seat step underneath the plastic trim. That's where we'll house the relay and make the connections between the wiring loom that's on the step already and the vehicle starter battery itself. We will also run some 2-core flex cable from the step up to the switch location, which will be in the B pillar on the passenger side, so that when you open the sliding door, you can reach up, press the switch on the bulkhead parcel shelf trim, and the step will open out so that you can enter the van. So the first thing I need to do is run the wiring loom that is coming out the back of the step from underneath the van up this pillar here by the diesel filler point and into the step area. So what I need to do is remove the plastic trim on the passenger seat step and feed this cable from underneath the van through a rubber gland into that pillar. So I'll show you that now. So you can see I've removed all the plastic trim surrounding the passenger step, and this is the grommet that I've seen that I can actually open. I'll be able to fish the cable through. I'll replace this with a grommet that's got a hole in it so the cables can run through that, because you don't want any cables running through this metal, otherwise it will chafe and expose the conductor inside. So I'll leave that off, and I'll also take this bit of plastic off. You can see that's the diesel fuel filler point, and then down through this hole there's a grommet which runs into the underside of the van. I'll just show you here. This grommet here, I'll put a hole in that, and then I'll be able to fish that cable up. So this is the grommet that was on the underside of the van, and I've cut a cross with my knife into that, and that now enables the 4 cables to pass through. So you can just poke those through. You can see that now has the cables running through. I'll then fish the cables up through that gap and pull them out on this side of the step. When I'm fishing cables through tight spots like this, I like to use a bit of wire or cable. This is 4mm flex earthing cable. It's just a bit more rigid, and I can fish this through, poke it through the small nooks and crannies, and then use a bit of fabric tape to tape the loom to this fishing wire, and then I can pull it all through. So here you can see I fished the cable through. I initially pulled it up through here and then fed it back down through this hole. And I've actually replaced, this was the original conduit. You can see I've cut it and I've taped another bit of split conduit together so I can access the conductors inside. It's a bit smaller as well, so that if I feed this back just a little bit, you can see there's a small gap around it, and around that gap I'm going to feed this open rubber gland so that it protects the conduit from the rubber edge. So I'll do that now. There we go, that's what it looks like. That gland's now in place. I'm now happy that I've got the gland protecting the conduit and obviously the conduit protecting the conductors inside. So what I'll do now is just set the relay up in its position, which is here, and then I'll begin to run these wires. I'll begin to run these wires to their respective location. So now I'm going to wire in the loom cables one at a time. I've got the brown one here, and on the wiring diagram you follow the step, the brown cable, it says to the chassis of the vehicle, and the black from the step is going up to the switch location. So if I follow the loom, the black cable I've just exited here because that's going to go up this pillar to the switch location, and then the loom follows along here, and I'm going to use this chassis point, which is a vehicle manufactured chassis point. You can see the vehicle wiring loom is negative chassised onto this bolt here, and then I'm going to put the relay just next to it here, and once the step trim goes back on, all of this gets covered. So this is a little void behind the step, which is quite nice for putting all these relays and connections hidden away but accessible. So here you can see I've terminated both the brown and the red cables from the step loom, and I've labelled them up. This one says step brown negative chassis. Obviously this is a negative cable connected onto the vehicle chassis. This one says step red relay 30. If I look on the actual diagram, you can see the step here, the red cable joins onto the relay on the 30 pin. So it's good to have them labelled, and then when you look at the relay on the underside, I don't know if you can see, but the numbers are written on the relay. So I just match that crimp up with that position there. And what I'm now going to do is I'm now going to start to finish this last cable here, the grey one. So if I look on the thing, it says grey, goes from the step, not going to have a lamp, into the relay at 86, but it will also be connected to the capacitor, which is this device here, and the capacitor negative will connect onto the grey cable and the relay point 86. So this smaller pin is the negative terminal, and this longer pin is the positive terminal. So I'll put this into a crimp and show you what it looks like. So you can see the wire, the grey wire is now in. It says step grey relay 86. So I've put it in the 86 pin, and I've also crimped in this negative on the capacitor. So you can see the grey cable goes from the step into the relay at 86 with the negative of the capacitor. What I'm now going to do is pick up this, which is the ignition feed, and I'm going to run a cable from the ignition feed into relay 85, and I'll crimp in the positive of the capacitor. My ignition feed is going to come from a Wago in the starter battery. Essentially the USB socket on the dash here is an ignition fed supply, so that will only have a positive and a negative of 12 volts when the engine's running. So I'll run a cable from that cigarette lighter down into a Wago, and then tap into that Wago, and then run that ignition feed down into the capacitor and into the relay. So here you can see the capacitor has been terminated in the positive side with that D plus feed. That then leads on to the relay 85 pin, and there's a couple of pins left on the relay, one of which is going to be the positive supply from the battery. So we'll use this red cable here, which is run into the battery unit, to supply that relay feed. It will have a 20 amp fuse and will run up to the switch and also into relay pin 87. Now that the connections are made into the capacitor, we will tape these up with some fabric tape, which is really good stuff and will provide additional mechanical protection to the insulation around these cables. So you can see I've now wired in all of the cables that run from the step to the relay, including the ignition feed to the relay. So you can see the step positive. I've got this blade fuse holder here, which will have a 20 amp fuse in it. That's connected onto the positive terminal of the starter battery, and that red cable runs down to this Wago here, and then it is jointed onto this cable which runs into relay number 87, which is this cable here, battery positive. But then the battery positive also needs to run up to the switch location. So there's a switch positive, a switch negative, an out cable and an in cable. So there's 4 cables running from the switch down to this area here. So I'm going to run 2 lots of 2 core up through this B pillar to the switch location, which will be on the other side of this headlining here. So I'll do that now and I'll show you what it looks like. So I've now run these 2 lengths of 2 core. I've identified the cables with a red tape and then no tape. This one I've cut to length, so this is going to basically have one black cable on the negative, which is the battery negative, and the positive in this core is going to go into this Wago here. So the battery positive obviously junctions into the relay and then junctions up to the switch, which is up in this behind the door rubber, behind this plastic trim in split conduit. You can see that runs all the way up through there and then it pokes out here, and this is where I'm going to wire in the switch. So obviously this cable that's got no red tape on is for the battery positive and negative, and then this cable which has got the little bit of red indicator tape, that's going to be the in signal and the out signal on the switch, which you can see here. So the in cable needs to go to the relay 87A, and the out cable needs to go to the black from the step, which is here. This is the black from the step, so that will go onto one of these cables here. So I've connected all of the loose cables up with their counterparts. You can see the Wago there. I'll tape all that up. Before I do, just wanted to check the system. So I've put the 20 amp fuse in the blade holder. I've run the cables up to the switch and I've wired them into the switch here. And if I press the button, it works. If you like this video, don't forget to give us the thumbs up and do subscribe if you want to see more van life content. See you next time.